Oh hey, it's you. I've been waiting for you. I've just been doing a little work here on my game. I got something to show you. Why don't you come in here a little bit? A little bit closer. Don't be shy. There. There we go. Alright, stop being weird. In today's devlog, I'll be reviewing all 51 of my Infernomon creatures in my game. But before we jump in, there's a few things that I'd like to cover first. This will help things make a little bit more sense before we start diving in and going through the characters. If you don't care about the details, then feel free to skip ahead and jump right into the Infernomon designs. But for those that are interested, each Infernomon in my game will have 1 or 2 elemental typings. The graphic I'm going to show up here will kind of explain how that works, and we'll show you how certain elemental typings have certain advantages or disadvantages against other Infernomon of different elemental typings. So for example, if you take fire, blight, and water, fire is super effective against blight, blight is super effective against water, and water is super effective against fire. But if you go the other direction, fire is weak to water, water is weak to blight, and blight is weak to fire. Also, each Infernomon has one of the following 4 roles: assassin, tank, support, and utility. The assassins are high damage dealers. Tanks have great defense and draw the attention of their enemies, forcing them to attack them instead of the other allies on your team. Supports heal their team and buff their stats. And utility Infernomon can play any other of the 3 roles. If you're interested on how exactly those roles will work in battle, feel free to go to the last video I posted on my channel. I go into a little bit more detail there. And also, each Infernomon does either physical damage or special damage, and each Infernomon has both a special defense stat and a regular defense stat. Physical attackers will do more damage to opponents with lower defense stat, while special attackers will do more damage to opponents with a low special defense stat. Also, each Infernomon has an agility stat, and the higher the agility stat is on the Infernomon, the faster it moves around the map, and the higher its critical strike chances. Each Infernomon also has a rarity. Rarities can be common, uncommon, rare, legendary, and epic. And the more rare an Infernomon is, the stronger it is, but also the harder it will be to acquire in the game. Infernomon in the game have both base stats and individual stats. Base stats are unique for each Infernomon species, while individual stats are unique for each individual Infernomon. And those individual stats are determined when the Infernomon is conjured and are generated randomly. Probably have some images up on the screen that show that how your stats can vary. And basically your individual stats can be anywhere from 1 to 5, and that determines your Infernomon's star rating within the game. So if your Infernomon has a 5-star rating in the game, that means it has perfect individual stats. But if you get an Infernomon in the game that's like 2 stars, you're probably going to want to conjure more of that Infernomon until you get an Infernomon with perfect stats. So that will be one of the fun goals in the game, is to try to conjure as many perfect Infernomon as possible. There will also be a lot of strategy around team building. Depending on which dungeon you're fighting, certain dungeons specialize in certain elemental typings. So for example, the water dungeon, it'll be advantageous to fight that dungeon with Blight or Electric Infernomon. So without further ado, let's jump in and take a look at all the Infernomon in the game. And buckle up, because we're gonna do them all. Alright, let's jump into it. So when you very first start the game, the first Infernomon you're going to receive is Malkizap, and upon gaining experience through battling in the game, your Malkizap will eventually be able to evolve into Razult. Malkizap and Razult are electric Infernomon. They are physical melee assassins, which means they do up-close physical damage in battle. They have high attack and high agility, and they make great buddy Infernomon, and by that I mean that in battle, one of the effects they have is the closer that they are to the player, the more damage they deal. They have an uncommon rarity, which means that they're fairly easy, but not the easiest to obtain later in the game. Then after acquiring your Malkizap, the next thing you're going to do is pick one of the 3 following Infernomon: Venonid, Tadlik, or Chiropter. Venonid is a blight/toxic Infernomon that belongs to the spider evolution family. Venonid will evolve into Decanid, who will then evolve into Festernid. These spiders are also physical melee assassins with a high attack and a high agility. They specialize in doing damage over time with their poison attacks and they can also slow enemies down using their sticky webs. They are rare Infernomon, meaning that they have a fairly medium difficulty in acquiring later in the game. Next, we have Tadlick, which is a water Infernomon that belongs to the frog evolution family. Tadlick evolves into Croconaut, who then evolves into Poliwallop. The frog evolution family can play in any one of the 3 roles, assassin, tank, and support, because it is a utility Infernomon, and it specializes in slapping and stunning its opponents, and also can summon defensive bubbles to protect itself from other attacks. Up next, we have Chiropter. Chiropter is a fire/wind Infernomon that is part of the bat evolution family. Chiropter evolves into Chiroptern, then evolves into Chiroptorch. These bats are ranged special assassins with high special attack and high agility. They can burn their enemies with their fire attacks, which will do damage over time, and they can also push enemies back with their wind abilities. And these are also rare Infernomon. Up next, we're just going to jump right into it and show Infernomort. Infernomort will be the final boss in the game and is the ultimate bad guy in the game, and is also the most powerful in the game. He is of the arcane elemental typing. He is a physical melee assassin with extremely high attack and agility stats. He has basic attacks, and the more basic attacks he uses, he builds up what I call infernal stacks. And once a certain amount of those infernal stacks are reached, he will unleash a very strong arcane attack. Infernomort is of the epic rarity, which is the most rare in the game, and so he's going to be very difficult to obtain. Next, we have Infernomus. Infernomus is an arcane utility Infernomon. Infernomus is one of the good Infernomon in the game, and in the storyline will play more of a protagonist type role. Infernomus has perfectly balanced stats and can do well playing any role. And what's unique about Infernomus is that his attacks can take on any elemental typing, which makes him pretty effective in just about every dungeon. He is also the only other epic rarity Infernomon, so he is also going to be very difficult to obtain. Next, we'll highlight the toxic reptile evolution family. First, we have Serpatox, who evolves into Lixlime, who then evolves into Terranox. When Lixlime evolves into Terranox, it gains the wind typing in addition to its toxic typing. These guys are special ranged attack assassins that have extremely high special attack. Terranox has really high stats and contends with Infernomus and the second place slot for being the most powerful Infernomon after Infernomort. And they have the legendary rarity, so that's going to make them pretty difficult to obtain. Next, we have 3 more legendaries. They are Elembolt, Elemquake, and Elemgel. Elembolt is an electric ranged assassin with a very high special attack and agility stat. Elemquake is a earth type physical melee assassin with a very high attack and HP stat. Elemgel is a ranged special assassin with a very high special attack and agility stat. And one of the unique things about these Infernomon is that when they are battling, they drop elemental orbs around the map, and when these orbs are picked up, it will buff whoever it was that picked up that orb and make them even stronger. Next, we have Orgrot, who is the very stinky, very ugly, very fat, and very slow ogre, but also very hard to take down. He is a rare melee physical tank. He has blight typing with very high hit points and also a strong attack stat. In battle, the more he is attacked, the more he becomes enraged and angry, and therefore becoming even more stronger, allowing him to have a higher attack stat. Now moving on to the wind typing owl evolution family, we have Strixlet, which is a cute little owl, but is also pretty weak. And they evolve into the most powerful support in the game, Strixum. Strixum has high HP and special defense. These owls are ranged special attackers that support their allies in battle by increasing their attack speed and their movement speed. Next, we have the ranged physical assassin Trollrag. Trollrag is normal typing and has a very high attack stat. In battle, he throws bones at his opponent, and the more he continues to attack the same target, the more momentum he gets, which will greatly increase his attack speed. Next, we have the rare Hellhound evolution family of Helound, Magmound, and Misthound. Hellhound is a cute little melee physical assassin puppy dog that can evolve into either Magmound or Mistbound. Magmound is a fire-type physical assassin with a high attack stat and a high special defense stat. Then we have Mistbound, who is a water typing and is a ranged special assassin with a high agility stat and special attack stat. The Hellhounds are pack animals and deal increasing damage when other members of their team have attacks that match their own same elemental typing. So let's say, for example, you paired Torch and Magmound together on the same team. That would give Magmound an even stronger attack stat because they both share a fire typing on their attacks. Next we have the uncommon Toxic Infernomon Lanky Yank. Lanky Yank is a physical melee assassin with a very balanced stat line. In battle, he specializes in pulling his opponents into him closer and then stunning them with a punch for one of his many arms. Next we have the uncommon Earth Infernomon Slizzard. Slizzard is a special melee utility Infernomon that also has a very balanced stat line. He pesters his enemies by continuously shooting them with sand and lowering their accuracy. Up next we have the electric uncommon Infernomon Chargeamp. Chargeamp is a special melee support that also has a somewhat balanced stat line, other than he has a slightly higher HP and moves slightly slower and has lower agility. Chargeamp amplifies his teammates by increasing their most powerful stat. So for example, if you put Chargeamp next to Orgrot has a high HP stat, and so Chargeamp would boost that stat even higher, so Orgrot would have a crazy high HP stat, essentially making him even fatter. Now moving on to the uncommon Arcane Imp evolution family, we have Incan Imp, Sorcerer Imp, and Arcan Imp. These guys are ranged special assassins, basically glass cannons with their low HP and defense stats, but absurdly high special attack and agility stats. During battle, the longer they stay in the same spot, the more they build up power and focus and deal even more damage to their opponents. We'll now take a look at the Tortoise evolution family of Ashello, Turmog, and Tankano. These guys are physical melee tanks of the earth and fire typing. They are very slow but have high attack and high defense stats. Also, their turtle shell allows them to reflect attacks back at their opponents, as well as lower the attack stat of any opponents that are attacking them. Next we have this rad water electric reptile evolution family of Nazir, Alizok, and Krozerk, who are all physical melee assassins with a pretty balanced offensive stat line. They deal damage in bursts in one of two ways. Either they do continuous damage with electric attacks and have a very strong water attack, or they do continuous water attacks and have a strong electric attack. Moving on to our last support characters in the game, we got Ganashroom and Juvashroom. They are of the Blight typing and do ranged special damage, and they support their allies by healing them with their mushroom abilities. Next we got Anuband and Anujak. They are ranged special assassins with decent special attack and agility stats. They are earth typing and specialize in slowing their enemies down by placing sinking sand pits around the map. Next we got Minusmog and Abumog. They are ugly, toxic Infernomon that stink even more than Orgrot. They are special melee tanks with high HP and special defense stats. Enemies that stand in their toxic fumes take increased damage from attacks the longer that they stay within the fumes. Next we have the Warthog evolution family of Hogrosh and Baroque. They are normal typing and are physical melee tanks with good HP and decent defensive stats. They periodically charge their enemies at a high speed and can stun them. Next we have the wind typing Ostrich evolution family of Chicky-Peck, Cluckbeak, and Rathook. They are physical melee assassins with decent attack and agility stats. With their exceptional vision, they can find weak spots on their enemies, which effectively gives them a higher critical strike rating when fighting. Now we'll move on to the Goblin evolution family of Godclaw and Gobblegash. They are normal typing and are melee physical assassins with a high attack stat. They are bursty attackers and do very strong initial damage when attacking an opponent for the very first time, and they can also lower the accuracy of their enemies with their smoke bomb. Alright, so that's a wrap on reviewing all of the Infernomon in my game. So far, I've actually only implemented the attacks for the starter evolution families of Chiropter, Tadelig, and Venonid. I'll probably showcase those sometime in a future video. And one thing I didn't go into is exactly how the attacks will work. Each Infernomon ultimately is going to have 4 attacks. Most of those are going to be unchangeable, but I'll explain more on that. on that in the future. So if you made it to the end, thanks for all those that stuck around. And if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will catch you all on the next video.